I'm Inspector Gadget, and I'm here to solve this case. As you know, Mr. Honcho L. Stree, the head of this movie studio, was killed an hour ago, while you were all gathered here for a party celebrating the start of filming. An explosive device next door was activated, and his dead body was blown through the wall into this room. According to security, you are the only people who have been on this soundstage. One of you committed the murder. Either you can help me figure out who did it, or you might spend the night in custody. It's up to you. Here are a few facts to keep in mind. Despite the hole in the wall, our experts have determined that it is safe for all of you to stay here. The local fire inspector was here 3 hours ago and concluded that the explosive devices next door were safely installed and would not go off until intentionally detonated. And Mr. Stree attended the first part of this party. He was seen having heated interactions with several people, some of them you, before he disappeared about 10 minutes before the blast occurred. It's time to begin getting to know each other. Follow the instructions in your character booklets. I'll be back with more news. I've returned with a few more clues that you may find interesting. We have recovered Mr. Stree's wallet, which contains some scribbles to himself. There are calculations that seem to indicate he was only paying half of what some people are usually paid. They are identified only by their initials, A, G, D, and T. He also notes that P, C, and M are working for no pay. Now, all those people may not be a part of this group, but I predict that some of them are. Another page has scribbles about buying some property adjoining the studio. It looks like he was intending to force the current owners off the land by any means necessary. The wallet also contained an article clipped from Variety newspaper 2 months ago, all about how Keanu Reeves, Gilliam Steelberg, and Shamie Lee Curses, who are now involved in Blast Dance, had struggled to raise funds for the movies they had hoped to make. Their names are crossed out in felt-tip pen, and "not anymore" written in the margin. Go ahead, discuss this evidence among yourselves. I'll be back with more dirt soon. Wow, it looks like you all have motives for murder. But I have some more information for you. We found a note clutched in Honcho's hand, asking for a private meeting on Soundstage B. In my expert opinion, it was written by someone who was unaccustomed to writing. I'd also say it was someone fluent in English, probably a woman. I also have part of the fire inspector's report from this morning. He says that the explosives were run by cutting-edge equipment. They could only be activated by a specially coded remote control, but the single remote unit was locked in a safe. And by the way, it's still there. And some police demolition experts are also analyzing the explosion. It was much larger than would have been needed for the movie. They suspect that some additional plastic explosives were added this morning. And it looks like a SEMP 447, which was just invented this year. It's still very hard to get. So go ahead, talk about it, and see if you can discover anyone who had the ability to commit murder. Well now, you have all the information I've found. I know who the murderer is. Do you? Then vote. Fill out a game ballot and give it to the host. I'll be back to see how many of my answers line up with yours. Does anyone want to make an accusation? Go right ahead. But be ready for the person you accuse to have an alibi. Alright, it's time for me to reveal my conclusion. The murderer needs to have good spelling, but be unused to handwriting. That eliminates people like Sean Cleese, Polly Pingwald, and Goka Booma. And since the murderer is probably a woman, that makes men like I'll Be Back, Keanu Reeves, and Duran Wham a lot less likely. But most importantly, the murderer needs to have coding abilities and access to advanced equipment, like the latest plastic explosives and a programmable remote control. And who is more likely than someone from the future? Marty McFly, I accuse you of the murder of Honcho L. Stree. Confess.